News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. Bloomberg News has learned Tehran is considering a short-term pause on shipping through the Strait of Hormuz to smooth the way to fresh peace talks. Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Defense Research Analyst Colonel Wayne Sanders.
They're looking right now, obviously, for the any vessels that are going in and out of Iranian ports. The question is that if you are doing that and they're trying to claim that they are a peaceful vessel, is the U.S. willing to actually chase them and interdict?
Bloomberg's Wayne Sanders, and that's boosted optimism, moving stocks higher. We check those markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. Let's start with oil. WTI crude down 6%, now around $93 a barrel. Brent crude down 3.8%, around $96 per barrel. S&P 500 up 1%, NASDAQ up 1.6%, the Dow up 0.6%. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.27%, the 2-year yield at 3.76%. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde says higher energy costs have pushed the eurozone away from the ECB's base case outlook. She spoke to Bloomberg's Francine Lacroix in Washington for the World Bank IMF meetings.
It's the Strait of Hormuz not being open for shipping and transportation, because you have 20% of gas and oil going through that, as well as the like of ingredients necessary for fertilizers, ingredients necessary for microchips.
Catch that full conversation with ECB President Christine Lagarde on the Bloomberg Video Hub at bloomberg.com/videos. U.S. wholesale prices surged last month as the war in Iran drove up the cost of energy. The Labor Department says its producer price index rose 0.5% from February and 4% from March of 2025. Energy prices surged 8.5% from February, excluding volatile food and energy prices. The so-called core producer prices rose a modest 0.1% from February and 3.8% from a year before. The gains in wholesale prices were smaller than economists forecast. The International Monetary Fund downgraded its growth projection for the year. IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gorenchas says damage from the energy shock from the war could be short-lived if a resolution to the conflict comes quick.
The closing of the Strait of Hormuz and serious damage to critical energy facilities in the Middle East raise the prospect of a major energy crisis should a durable solution not be found soon.
Gorenchas spoke in Washington, D.C. during the IMF spring meetings. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested the IMF lead by example and focus more on global imbalances.
Because I can tell you, this slow motion buildup of global imbalances after a lack of sustainable growth is the biggest risk. The world cannot take a China with $1 trillion trade surplus.
Bessent spoke at an Institute of International Finance event in Washington, D.C. Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee says the energy price surge from the war may push back interest rate cuts. He tells the Associated Press the longer the war continues, the less likely we'll see cuts this year. Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Citigroup all reported earnings today. Wells Fargo's net interest and non-interest income forecasts missed. Wells Fargo shares more than 5% lower. J.P. Morgan Chase posted a net income of $16.5 billion, up 13% year over year, beating estimates. J.P. Morgan shares are little changed. Citigroup shares are more than 3% higher after reporting sales above estimates. J.P. Morgan Chase says President Trump's argument that his alleged 2021 blacklisting by Jamie Dimon justifies suing the bank in Florida makes no sense. The bank is seeking to move Trump's debanking suit to Manhattan federal court. Trump contends the allegation against the bank's CEO means these account agreements don't apply. J.P. Morgan says Trump has not explained what the alleged industry blacklist is, nor shown that it actually exists. Amazon has agreed to acquire satellite operator Globalstar in a roughly $11.6 billion deal to expand the services of its satellite system. The deal is expected to close in 2027, and Amazon will enter the direct-to-service market in 2028, with Apple's emergency messaging service transitioning to Amazon Leo, the company's broadband satellite network. Amazon shares are more than 3% higher, Globalstar shares more than 10% higher. The Treasury Department's technology team is seeking to gain access to Anthropic's Mythos AI model to hunt for vulnerabilities. Treasury CIO Sam Korkos briefed the Treasury cybersecurity team on the tech and directed it to prepare for threats from powerful AI systems. Anthropic has warned the Mythos model model may be capable of powering cyber attacks if companies don't test it against their own systems. Republican Senator Tom Tillis tells CNN he still plans to block the nomination of Kevin Warsh as Fed chair. Tillis does not object to Warsh per se. He does want the Department of Justice to drop its investigation into the Federal Reserve's renovation project at the central bank. Earlier, Senator Tim Scott had said the Senate Banking Committee will hold Warsh's confirmation hearing next week. Warsh, meanwhile, has disclosed assets that total at least $192 million. He's promised to divest from certain holdings and resign from board positions, including as director of UPS. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.